How many pages have I written? The words.
Ooh.
The endings. I've lost count. And still I remain trapped within this darkness. But this time, something is different. The answer lies just out of reach, enshrouded in black fog.
Okay.
I'm closing in now. I must be. The words move through me like blood through a vein. To escape, I must write. Though this new ending remains a mystery, I hold out hope that one day the fog will part.
I love
to illuminate
this.
my next chapter.
I love that so much. That's actually so cool. Alan Wake officially here. January 30th. Okay. You know, I got to give them credibility because they honestly do. Man, it's so interesting because, like, for me, Dead by Daylight it's just like the collaboration of horror, you know, and it's obviously meant to be that ways, and it's almost like been 10, you know, I guess 10 years that we're like kind of closely reaching that mark, I guess now, but like this is really cool. Now I know that Alan Wake it's only like a survivor thing, as we saw in the roadmap prior. So we're not getting like a killer combo with this, which is fine, makes sense. But Alan Wake is pretty cool. I also do have the notes for the chapter because the PTB also started today as well. So I love the ambiance of it too. What I really like is that okay, because like Alan Wake tells a very, it's got a really powerful narrative, and I love that narrative also still is showcased in the trailer for the character, but like with respect to DBD as a game as well. So I think I love, this is probably one of my favorite trailers I think that the game has ever made for a character being introduced into the game. There's a lot of really good ones, but this one definitely like hits, it just hits really well. So I really loved this trailer. So, but like I said, we also have the notes for the patch since it's live right now in the moment. So let's go ahead and check out those. All right, here we are. Patch notes 7.5 with the PTB released an hour ago, featuring Alan Wake. Alrighty. So the progress and save data obviously related to the game, January 2nd. So there's that. Features. So of course we did read the developer update for January 2024 as well, and they talked about a lot of really exciting features that will come to the PTB, but they were going to emphasize a lot of further things with the PTB versus the developer update. So let's get like a better view of everything, if you will. So features, field of view settings. There is a new settings option in DBD. Players now have the ability to adjust their FOV or field of view with a slider in the settings menu. This allows players with a first-person camera, killers with the exception of the good guy, which is a very good observation. So in the developer update, they mentioned that it was only first-person killers. They did not include Chucky. Or they didn't even mention that Chucky wasn't going to be active. It was kind of obvious, though, because they specifically said first-person, but for them to actually clarify it specifically that the good guy was also like, you know, a third person killer and they weren't including him in the FOV slider thing is just a nice kind of touch of you know, confirmation. So I just wanted to make sure that they actually like included this part, so that's good. To adjust the field of view, reducing motion sickness and other accessibility issues, feature is initially in the beta tab while we allow for thorough testing. So the thing is, like, people, it's interesting that they're calling it like an accessibility thing because it really isn't. It's like kind of a buff for the killers. So I think every killer got buffs because you can increase the field of view. I think there is a comfort thing to this as well, though. So it'll kind of sort of depend and see how people, you know, how often it gets used, because you can't really tell what the slider is going to be for people anymore. So like with Shadowborn and Monitor and Abuse, like now you can't tell that those perks are being used because they're just not gonna, or for the FOV in this at least, because you're not gonna really tell, because now the FOV will just kind of become like a meta thing, if you will, too. It's designed. It should be designed around getting comfort, or you know, being able to just have it as an accessibility option. But people are going to eventually talk about how it's like, oh, it's required to put it at the 103 angle because you can just see more, right? So we'll see. Anyways, so there are 2 perks with FOV settings involved. Shadowborn, which is getting a completely redone concept for it, because the only thing that it did back then was increase the field of view. So now Shadowborn is when blinded by any means. So I guess it means like, flashlight, or the perk that Joe has with the Blast Mine, you gain a 10% haste status effect for 10 seconds. We did talk about this. It's an interesting perk. I think that it's not going to be, I don't know how good this perk will be. I don't think it'll be like incredibly good, but it will be interesting. And then monitor abuse has no changes except for the fact that they just remove the FOV clause that was involved. So perk wise, it's the same exact thing as it was, just there's no field of view involving with chasing, which is cool. Generator systems update. So this is the update where they basically try to address 3 genning, which is a huge pain point for survivors. And so let's read into it. The 3-gen strategy, identifying the 3 closest generators and defending only them, has become very strong, especially on certain killers. This can lead to very long games and frustrations. To help prevent such situations, the following now applies. Each generator can only suffer from 8 regression events maximum, meaning a regression event is when you either kick the gen or a perk performs a regression on a generator that is more than 2.5%. So you can only do that 8 times throughout the entire match for a particular generator. So normally you have to cleanse 5 generators. There's 2 more additionally, right? So then you have a maximum of 56 events you can perform if you had to use it for every single generator. There will be a new strategy on how to actually capitalize on this from the killer side, but they did mention in the developer update that this is not something that should ever really become like a hindrance, or like it should only limit the ability for the killer to basically monitor the 3-gen situation. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think you're actually going to create a scenario where this becomes part of the gameplay, because I don't think people realize how often a gen kick or a regression event occurs when it comes to generators. It's actually pretty frequent. So we'll see how this plays out, but they did mention that this should not become something that is involved in normal gameplay. After the max has been reached on a generator, the generator can no longer be regressed by the killer, including kicks, add-ons, and perk-related regressions. The number of regressions per generator is indicated by increasing VFX after 3 or more regression events. Gens at max regression events cannot regress by the killer, including kicks, add-ons, and perks-related regressions. Survivors failing skill checks still regress generators normally and do not count as regression events, which is a good point, because the idea was that the regression would come from the killer. But if you force 8, like if you had 3 people on a generator and you had each of them fail skill checks, then that would count as a regression event. It wasn't something that was discussed in the developer update or on my social media, but it's just really good to note that like this doesn't come from the survivors in any kind of way. It only comes from the killer's regression actions versus anybody's. So that's a good point. They also increased the killer kick regression. So every kick that the killer does is like a little pop. It was 2.5%. It increased to 5%. They also removed gen tapping, where you just take a 0.1 second to just kind of touch the gen to stop the regression. Now you must repair 5% of the generator, or equal to the kick regression of the killer, to basically stop it from regressing. And the regression does not occur while repairs are in progress, which is good. They also changed a couple of perks. So Hex Ruin. All of generators are afflicted by Hex Ruin while generator is being repaired by survivor. It will immediately regress to 100% of the normal speed. It no longer deactivates when the killer kills the survivor. So it'll just be a perk that is fully functional all throughout the entirety of the match while the perk is active. So you just have to, the only way you can get rid of this perk is just by cleansing it. It doesn't deactivate itself after taking out survivor. Surge and Pain res does not create a loud noise notification if no progress is lost on the generator, which is smart. So as you can kind of tell, oppression only causes a regression event on the generator that was kicked, which is also noteworthy because oppression will become a very good perk as a result of this, because simply just that like the fact that it will cause other generators to regress, but like, so that means that the oppression actually will increase the maximum amount of times that you can like maximize the regression event. So I think oppression as a result of this will be very, very strong just because. So this is definitely noteworthy. I think so. As a result of these, oh, and then with overcharge, only the initiating kick counts as regression event, which makes sense. So the idea is that because of how the regression system is going to work now, knowing that there's a maximum amount of times that the killers can regress generators, perks like Ruin and Oppression are going to shoot up in the tier list. I think Ruin will become a bit of a more meta perk because Hex Ruin doesn't do anything with regression events at all as long as the perk is active. So you might be seeing a lot of people running like Hex Ruin and like Hex Undying just to kind of keep Ruin alive throughout the majority of the match. Just because it doesn't, it requires a regression event occurs when it's 2.5% at an instant, and Ruin is not and has no instance of immediate 2.5 regression. So Ruin will become powerful for that reason alone. And then Oppression will be great because it'll cause one kick, but it'll affect 3 generators. So those other 2 generators that are regressing as a result of Oppression will not count as regression events. So you'll be able to actually regress a lot of generators without actually kicking them, which is very important. So those 2 perks will be definitely very, very powerful. And with that case in point, we now move on to the content of the new Survivor Alan Wake. So let's see, he's got his perks here. Champion of Light. While you are holding a flashlight, the perk activates. When you are shining a flashlight, you have 50% haste. Ooh. Okay. Interesting. When you successfully blind the killer, they also gain 20% hindered for 6 seconds. The effect cannot stack with itself, and it goes on cooldown for 60 seconds. That's actually a pretty good perk. It's going to be an extremely good perk for a lot of reasons. This perk just like this is a very powerful perk. Very powerful. It may not seem like it, but it definitely is. Because the fact that you are faster while you're shining a flashlight is interesting. And then when you actually blind the killer, the fact that they're hindered, the thing is, like, if the killer gets blinded after kicking a generator, then they just have to. Actually, I wonder if it does involve blast mine, because let me think. I guess it doesn't matter. I think as long as you're holding a flashlight, right? I wonder if, I mean, they should probably clarify that a little bit, because if you're holding a flashlight, the perk is active, and then when you blind the killer, but it doesn't indicate that it can be done outside of just a flashlight. I'm assuming it could be done with a blast mine, but if you can't do it with a blast mine, then I would love for that clarity to be showcased. But if, assuming that you can, then like if a generator gets kicked by a killer and then they get blast mined, then the fact that they're hindered, obviously like the kick will be like 3 seconds, but they'll still have like mobility issues with that, will be very interesting. In the event that you get hit with like a pallet stun and then you get blinded by the killer or by the survivor with this perk on, then a lot of this time will get wasted through just kicking the pallet, but it does kind of force you to kick the pallet, because going around would be kind of a pain. So that is interesting. I think that if you have I think a lot of people will be running this perk pretty easily. And not to mention, it doesn't even matter. Like this perk also works really well if you like if a survivor gets downed and then you flashlight save with this as well. This also becomes very strong. So that's interesting. We'll see more about this, of course, with the PTB. There's a boon totem. I didn't think that they actually did boons anymore. I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of wasn't expecting there to be a boon. Illumination. Person holding ability 1 near a dull or hex totem to bless it and create a boon totem. Soft chimes ring out in a 24-meter range. Survivors inside your boon totem's range see the aura of all chests and generators in blue. Huh. Survivors inside the boon totem's range see the aura of all chests and all generators in blue. That's cool. I actually like that. So you can just enter it and then you can just see everything that's going on. That's really cool, actually. If you have a lit boon totem, you cleanse or bless totems 10% faster. You can only bless one totem at a time. Okay. So illumination lets you see generators and chests while you're inside of the boon. And then if you have a boon totem lit, you can cleanse or bless other totems faster. I actually like that. It's kind of it's not a perk that's going to be very powerful, but it's going to be helpful. If there was something, I think that this perk doesn't like it's good, but it's not like amazing. I don't know exactly what else this perk would need, but this isn't like a it's not like a super strong perk. Like it's nice to be able to know that you can see chests and generators, and then while the perk is active, then you can work with other totems. Like I can see that makes it, because the problem is that if the killer finds this totem and you're working on you still like working on another one, you don't have the blessing of doing it faster. So it's kind of weird to, like, I can see this working more so for like let's say I have it activated on one side of the map, but I'm on the other side of the map, and then I want to heal myself, or at least like give myself circle of healing as well, and I combine it with illumination. Then I would only need it for the 10% speed versus the chest and generator. Or I mean, it's interesting. So it's okay. Good perk, not bad. Last perk is Deadline. This perk activates when you are injured. Skill checks appear 10% more frequently when repairing or healing and appear in random places. The penalty from a skill check is reduced by 50%. Ooh. Okay. So when you're injured, you get more skill checks and they appear in random places. So you kind of give yourself the doctor's like sanity, basically. You give yourself doctor sanity to get more skill checks when repairing and healing. And if you miss a skill check, the penalty is reduced. That's not bad. I can see this perk being okay. So this perk is definitely like one of the best perks, like I think that they've made in a while. So this perk is very powerful. This perk is not so much. This perk is actually pretty niche. So I can definitely use this perk. I can see this perk being paired really, really well with resilience and hyper focus from Rebecca, because then you'll be able to just give yourself the resilience boost with this perk, and then in the event that you can get a great check, then that'd be really helpful. I want to know what the randomness looks like. I'm very curious about this too. So this is cool. Honestly, I like the perk set. It's cool. The boon, the problem, it's weird because like boons are not really like, boons are kind of out of style right now, weirdly enough. But everything else is pretty cool, so I like that. All right. Hillbilly, killer power. When you press and hold the button to break into a chainsaw sprint, starters hit during a chainsaw are put into dying state. So that's still the same. Cool. Revving the chainsaw and sprinting with the chainsaw each cause the overdrive meter to increase. The meter decreases when the chainsaw is not in use. When the meter is full, the chainsaw goes into overdrive. So, as you know, overheating is no longer a thing. And ideally, when he's chainsaw sprinting, his speeds increase, obviously, and he gets the one shot. But also, when he goes into overdrive, he goes even faster, which is very, very quick. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty scary, actually, to see this killer running around. Base changes. Increase chainsaw sprint movement speed to 10.12 meters. It was 9.2, so it's actually even fat. It's actually more than, so 4.6 is the base movement speed for killers. 9.2 is double. It's even faster than double with just the regular movement speed. They decreased the chainsaw hit cooldown to 2.7 seconds. It was 3. They decreased the mist to 2.5. It was 3. Increased movement speed during chainsaw mist cooldown to 2.3. It was 1.38. Okay, yeah. They're just kind of giving him buffs around the board. Decreased the size of the chainsaw's collision to improve navigation during a chainsaw sprint. They disconnected the chainsaw sensitivity from controller sensitivity, which is, I know that's like a weird exploit thing, but it was cool. All right, and then now we have ourselves overdrive. While in overdrive, the chainsaw is enhanced. Chainsaw charge and sprint speeds are increased, and chainsaw sprint cooldowns are reduced. Overdrive lasts for 20 seconds. which is interesting because it's not something that is like a one, like you kind of just, you still go, you kind of go crazy with the chainsaw, I think, after you activate overdrive. So this makes sense. Base overdrive stats: chainsaw charge speed increases by 5. Chainsaw movement speed increased by 13 meters per second, which is like more than triple speed, by the way. And the cooldown for the chainsaw is reduced by 10% across the board. And they also changed a lot of add-ons. So grease throttle was junkyard air filter. Okay. Decrease recovery time after a successful chainsaw hit by 10%. Okay. They added a counterweight. It was the heavy clutch. Okay. So they decreased chainsaw sprint initial turn rates by 70%. Okay. The hit cracked primary bullet with speed limiter. Surface hit with the chainsaw are damaged for a single health state. Oh. And then it increases overdrive generation by 15%. Okay. So you can get overdrive faster, but only if you do. Okay, got that. That's interesting, actually. That almost reminds me of like a little blight action right there. Steel toe boots. The increased cover time after hitting an object with a chainsaw by 10%. It was 12. Fair enough. Big buckles, now begrimed chains. Survivors hit with a chainsaw suffer from the mangled and hemorrhage status effect until fully healed. Okay. They gave him Sloppy Butcher. That's gonna be a rough one. Yeah, that's gonna be rough. Dad's boots increased chance of turn rate by 30%. It was 28. Okay. Clogged intake was death engravings, increased the duration by 15%. That's pretty big, actually. Brand operator motor oil increases the generation by 15%. Okay. Thermal casing was punctured muffler, decreases speed at which heat dissipates when not using chainsaw by 10%. Okay. The Thompson's mix increased recovery time after a successful chainsaw hit by 15%. Okay. Iridescent engravings, it was the Doom engraving, so they increased the movement speed of the chainsaw sprint by 20%, which is actually a lot. So, wow. And then increased the time required to charge the chainsaw by 12%. Okay. Yeah, so they turned it into an iridescent. Interesting. Okay. Ragged engine was leafy mash, decreased the speed at which overdrive dissipates when not using the chainsaw. Fair enough. Change recovery time after hitting an object with the chainsaw by 15. It was 28. Mother's helpers changed it to the discarded air filter. Increased time it takes for overdrive start dissipated by 15%. And then the high speed. Oh, okay, yeah, same thing, but it's 20%. Okay. Spike boots increased the turn rate to 45%. It was 44, and they removed functionality. Okay. The tuned carburetor is an ultra rare. Okay, interesting. Apex muffler is changed to very rare. Okay. And then iridescent brick is now filthy slippers. After maintaining a chainsaw sprint for 2 seconds, you gain undetectable until the sprint ends. Cool. So I'm actually glad that they kept this one out of all of them, honestly, because I think that this is the one that people really like playing with, and I think honestly he's pretty scary with this iridescent on. So we'll see how people play with the killer. Added a new loading state card in the chainsaw meter, the overdrive meter rather. Added a new score for using chainsaw. Oh, curve hit, overdrive. Okay, these are all scores you get for using the chainsaw with overdrive. Cool. All right. They also changed the Onryo. So demanifested state, while demanifested, you can gain bloodlust as usual, and you can enter chases as usual. When demanifesting, bloodlust is no longer lost. Increases demanifested state invisibility duration to 1.2 seconds from 1. This used to be an add-on. They just made a base kit. The killer power, they basically just undid everything that they did with the rework for Onryo. So now, like, she can teleport freely without worry. Like, there's no cooldown for teleporting. You have to be near a TV in order to get condemned from the killer as a survivor. There is going to be a VFX showing the range at all times when it comes to the TV being powered, which is cool. The power TVs are revealed to survivors within 16 meters of it, which is also really cool because actually you can use this to understand if you're close to a TV or not and avoid the condemned. You no longer get protection hits from the tapes when you are getting condemned. There's no longer the tape doesn't get destroyed anymore. You don't get condemned hit gain when you get hit by the killer with a tape in your hand, which is cool. They did force the survivors to go back and go run across the map with the TV thing though, so that's kind of obnoxious, but it's okay. For now, we'll see how this plays out. Retrieving a tape now takes 1 second instead of 2, and then inserting a tape takes 1 second instead of 2, which is cool. They changed several of her add-ons. So increase the range at which survivors gain condemned from projection by 2 meters. This is a really good add-on. Definitely not gonna deny that. People were really liking Reiko's watch when they were playing Onryo, which increases the invisibility duration while demanifested. They toned this down because they took some of it out and put it into the base kit. So that's kind of the takeaway point with the watch. Ring drawing when hooking a survivor carrying a tape. Other survivors gain 1 condemned stack. That's a pain. Okay. Because additionally, so the whole problem with Onryo that we had with the rework was that the Onryo would never hook people. She would just teleport between televisions just to kind of force them to get condemned and then just kind of commit the mori as a result. So they would never really hook people. Now there's a good reason for the killer to hook people because their condemned gets locked when they do get hooked. So when they get unhooked, then you can kind of force yourself to teleport near the hook where you did the unhooking and then give them condemned again as a result. So it kind of promotes hooking survivors, but it still doesn't help with the tunneling and camping situation, but we'll kind of see how that plays out. Okay. Tape editing deck. So everyone starts the trial with a tape in their hands, which doesn't change, but if you insert the tape, your aura is revealed for 6 seconds. Interesting. And then the iridescent videotape. The protection doesn't turn off TVs and doesn't apply condemned, and then TVs turned off by survivors take longer to turn back on. So there's that. Okay. Blights. They also nerfed a lot of blight stuff. So they changed the blighted rat and crow. They reduced the amount of rush speed per rush, because they were stackable. They basically just nerfed a lot of the add-ons, is a very simple way to put it. They increased the rush tokens, they also increased the rush look angle, but they decreased the rush turn rates for the adrenaline vial. Alchemist Ring now has a new functionality where it increases the rush duration by 20%. They just completely, I think, removed what the old effect was, which is crazy actually. Compound 33, they increased the turn rate by 30% for each rush that travels at least 4 meters, which is a new functionality. And then the blight tag is an interesting one. It still doesn't make sense to me, but you can basically rush without having to use your tokens. And then it goes on cooldown for 20 seconds after a successful attack. This is the add-on that if you basically hit someone with the final rush, then it's like getting them exposed, and it's like a one-shot down. It's weird because it doesn't make sense, but I feel like it's designed to, you use the rush to get the last rush, get the final hit, get the pickup, because you can't rush. I think this kind of stops you from rushing again, so you can't rush for 20 seconds. So you're basically required to just pick up the person and go for the hook sort of thing. I think that's the idea with the iridescent change. So we'll see. And then they changed some perks, which is interesting. This is kind of a big conversation, actually. So, Quick Gambit, they basically increased the aura of gens from 24 to 36 meters, which is still not a lot. Survivors working on a generator, they decreased the repair rate from 8% to 5%, which is not really good, but wait. Yes. Yeah. I thought that the wording, they changed the wording of this, but it doesn't matter. The perk is still it's really not that good. So while you're chased by the killer, the auras of the generators are within 36 meters are highlighted, and then stars working on those highlighted generators get a speed boost to repairing the generator. This perk is still not good. Save the best for last is definitely one that I think is turning a lot of heads. People kind of agree, some people disagree, but they reduced basically the amounts of stackable cooldown for the basic attack from 5 to 4%, so that it went from 40 to 32%. They also reduced it over to 8 tokens, right? Well, I mean, it's still 8 tokens. So again, the percentage change kind of reduces the amount that you can basically have cooldown wise. And the biggest part here is that when the obsession loses a health state by any means, the killer loses 2 tokens. You can't gain tokens as long as the obsession is sacrificed or killed. So people are wondering that, like, if survivors force themselves into certain health states, if it does force you to lose it as a result, which means that the killer will lose tokens by not doing anything. It's up to the actual survivor action. So like if you plot twist from injured to to dying if you lose tokens as a result of that. And if you do, that's going to be tough. And lastly, Grim Embrace. Each time a server is hooked for the first time, you get a token, and then when you leave a 16-meter range on that hook, all generators get blocked for 12 seconds, which is a new functionality. The same functionality is still present, where if you get 4 tokens, meaning you put each server on a hook for the first time, then once you leave the hook, then the entity blocks all generators for 40 seconds, which is very, very, very strong. So I think, as I said in the developer update, this perk will become the meta as a result, because the fact that you can block generators significantly and pair it up with the other perks that will regress while they're blocked will become a huge pain point. So Grim Embrace, definitely the new meta perk here. They changed the Orman map. They kind of changed the front of the map, where there's like that really big rock that's kind of like a long rock. They just got rid of that and broke it down. And there's a bunch of like window picnic tables and whatnot. They also added more stuff in the back of the map for more maneuverability, because it's kind of a dead zone there. And so that way I think as a result, they actually buffed this map in a very simple point. They just buffed it because there's more stuff. And that way you can kind of run around with the killer and everything too. So, they did some changes to the map, and the battling layout is the same. They just wanted to address the front of the entrance. It had no gameplay or interesting loops. It was a big pile of rocks, so they went through the update to make sure that it was more fluid, and they just added a lot of other things to it. So it'll be a much more usable area, if you will. And then we got bug fixes and characters and changes and animations and audios and bots and environments and gameplays and UIs and all that fun jazz. So there you go. So honestly, all in all, Alan Wake chapter is definitely really cool by concept. I actually am really excited for it. I also think that with these incoming changes, it'll definitely depend on what people come up with, because I think the biggest changes that are being implemented to this patch notes, honestly, is the FOV updates and the generator system, because these two things, they're very two different things, but I think that they're going to have really high affectation, because the FOV slider, the fact that this is going to be something that is, for lack of a better word, like base kit to all killers, will be very, very interesting, because some people actually really benefit from having the FOV increase or decrease. I feel like it's going to become a thing where everyone just permanently increases the FOV slider to max range, because you can just see more. But that, again, that'll be that'll be, we'll see for sure. And then the generator update, I really want to understand that this 8 regression events thing is actually going to become part of normal gameplay, instead of it being a rarity like the developers said that it would be. They did mention that it shouldn't be part of normal gameplay. I don't agree with that. I think that it will be, but it will certainly depend on, just how the gameplay will be from now and moving forward. So we'll see. Perks are cool. The survivor is definitely really cool. I really, really like that he's in the game. So we'll definitely play around with the perks. Definitely the best one out of the 3 is Champion of Light. Deadline is really cool. And then I think that boons are just kind of like a thing of the past. To be very honest, in order for boons to kind of have like a resurgence, you'd have to sort of give them all a buff to a small degree, because there's just no reason. Like, boons are not weak, but they're not as strong as they used to be, and there used to be a nice time where boons were good. Boons definitely don't break the game, but they definitely are more powerful in some regards versus others, especially when they're paired together. So for us to get a boon totem, this is also a very weak boon totem in comparison to what we've had to. So, they didn't want to go really crazy with it, which I totally understand. The only thing missing is like a boon totem where you can repair generators faster while you're in the aura, I think then that'll be like the creme de la creme of boons. But again, that would also be very powerful. So we'll see. But yeah, there you have it. Alan Wake, coming out January 30th at the end of this month. We only have a couple of days before then, so honestly, it's gonna fly by quickly when this survivor comes out. So it's gonna be really, really fun. I'm really excited for this too. So also, Hillbilly update, massive W. I know that people have been really sad about Hillbilly for a very long time. I think it's because Hillbilly went from being like a very top tier fun killer to being like a passionate killer, where you love the killer for what it is versus how good it is. I think that Hillbilly was never really disrespected, but except for like by the actual developers like nerfing him to the ground sort of thing, and now he's better. So the fact that he's gotten a lot of love this patch will be really cool. This is kind of his chapter to shine. Onryo too, sort of, because like she's getting a basically like a undo to everything that she did, but we'll see how she plays out. I know people weren't really a big fan of the new Onryo, and some people didn't like the old Onryo. Some people miss the old Onryo because of how her gameplay used to be. So lots of things to take into account. So we'll see how the PTB plays out for us. So thank you all so much for watching. I love the trailer. Trailer was really, really cool. I just want to check out the Survivor and just see what the perks play like and come up with some crazy nutty combos. So thank you, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.